What would you do if the god of death gives you, or worse, your sworn enemy, the power to get rid of anyone in the world by writing down their name in a demonic book? Thankfully, though, the abilities of this book aren't all that balanced, so sit back and take note of all the things you could possibly do to survive as we figure out ways to manipulate and exploit the Death Note. Just in case, you know. Bury, burn, and hide the book. First off, in case the infamous book ever ends up with you, you could maybe, I don't know, not go around killing people no matter how awful they are. We understand that it's very tempting, you know, the power that comes with it and all. And there's no denying that all of us have at one point wished we could have had our hands on something like a Death Note. But believe it or not, it can be an addictive downward spiral. Once you start, there's no going back because the Death God will make sure that there are regular entries in the book. And you don't want to be a psycho serial killer who could possibly end up in prison for life, do you? Besides, you don't want the book to end up with the bad guys. Imagine the destruction if the likes of, I don't know, Kim Jong-un got a hold of it. Bury it in the deepest pits of hell. Next, get rid of your name. And if for whatever reason the owner decides against it, red flag, go anon, anonymous, or whatever. Not having a name might sound bizarre, but that's not as weird as living in a world where people are just boop, 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 dropping like flies thanks to their names being written down in some weird book. And since we're trying to dodge death by manipulating the Death God, the very first rule clearly says that to kill a person, a name must be written in the Death Note. And one of the things you can do to stay off the grid is to either not have a name at all, which we agree is pretty hard to do actually, or you could have a very complicated one that could be easily forgotten or hard to spell out, since the rules say any name misspelled more than 4 times will be spared. So all of you with unusual names, congrats, you're probably gonna live. Not gonna lie, XAEA12 sounds like an awesome name right about now. Did I say that one right? Damn it, Elon. Hide your identity. This brings us to the second rule of the Death Note. It'll only take effect if the writer knows the person's face they want to get rid of and thinks of them when writing down their name. This is one of the reasons you'll see the genius detective, better known as L, with his face covered, and Light visualizes his victims before he writes them down. In case the book ends up with your arch nemesis, you might want to keep your face covered at all times. Go completely underground, delete those selfies from your Insta, heck, maybe even get plastic surgery or something. Whatever it takes. Hide your face with a mask, which is not going to look weird at all considering half the world is already doing it thanks to the pandemic. Woo! Now to make the god of death fall in love with you. This is a very desperate measure, but you know all's fair in love and war, so why not? In one of the rules of Death Note, it says that if the god of death decides to use the Death Note to murder an assassin of a person he admires, the person's life will be prolonged, but the god of death will die. So basically, Ryuk will sacrifice himself to protect the person he loves, which has given us some pretty crazy ideas. Now in the beginning, when Ryuk introduces himself to Light, he also tells him that he was no ally or enemy to him, and was only going to do what the book rules said, which allow him to protect any one person. In the film, Light fails to grab the opportunity as we see Ryuk letting him get beaten up, and even writes his own name into the Death Note since he has no love for Light, and simply saw the humans' conflict as a sort of entertainment. But if you're smarter than Light and manage to have this guy on your side, maybe by running a search on folklore and figuring out a way to win his heart, or trying to sweet talk him, to lure him, dress up, look good, take him to dinner, I don't know, just do whatever it takes, cause Ryuk in love will die for you, which sucks because no human would ever do the same. Maybe he isn't so bad after all. Anyways, own the book. Another way you can avoid getting killed is by owning the book. Yeah, according to one of the many rules, the note owner can't be killed by a god of death, unless he's passed on his Death Note to a human willingly. Which means that if you happen to get the book through a friend or steal it from the owner, you become the owner after a while, and will most likely be spared. But, and this is a major but, you don't want to randomly pick it up from a street like Light does. In the film, Ryuk indirectly gives Light the Death Note after he purposely drops it into the human world for somebody to pick, just for fun, for the heck of it. This makes the owner, that was Light, more vulnerable to Ryuk's power, who is later able to write Light's name down in the Death Note that eventually kills him. Next, get rich or die trying. Wait a minute, if we can use the Death Note to prevent or cause death, or even prolong our lives, then why not use it for something better? You know, like getting rich or solving conflict. Nobody gets hurt, and you get the monies. With the power bestowed in you thanks to Death Note, you can easily make the likes of Gates and Musk mention you in their wills, or even get rid of evil millionaires before claiming all their money. Not even that. You can just use the Death Note to change the course of history, you know, make the world leaders sit down and talk about the much needed world peace, you know, that thing. Or maybe in a typical Robin Hood fashion, force the stingy billionaires to donate their millions for starving populations in Africa. You could end world hunger and disease. This would just change the Death Note from an evil book to a little bit of a nicer one, you know? Just try to be an optimist. And Ryuk might fall in love with you for that one too. Oh yeah, and don't be stupid. If all else fails, despite several attempts to survive or avoid the Death Note and its consequences, that is, giving in to the temptation, you might want to be very careful. In the film, Light develops develops a thirst for blood and goes around killing whoever he believes is a bad guy. First he goes after criminals, and stupidly chooses to eliminate them in similar ways, one after another, putting law enforcement on red alert. What an idiot, right? Light openly reads and writes down these names in the Death Note publicly, and searches for criminals on his school's computer, and kills his mom's murderer. It's literally more evident than the Kardashian butt implants at this point. With his dad being part of the law enforcement, he could easily get caught. But the dummy don't just stop there. Light gets FBI agents killed, which further makes him sussy. Enter Detective L, one of the most genius detectives of all time. We think L is the last person we'd want to tail you, after Ryuk, of course, and unfortunately for Light, that's exactly what happens. Now, what you want to do here is literally the bare minimum. Avoid getting caught. Yeah, duh. Remain low-key and very subtle. If you really want to get rid of the bad guys, then you could maybe, I don't know, do it gradually and not so in-your-face of an approach that would get you on Detective L's radar, which would make his job easier, so hey, that'd be a win-win if you did. Instead of freak accidents in a similar way, assign random dates and natural causes of death to the criminals that you really want out. Don't be going around killing the poor pickpocket or small-time thief. That'll mean killing half the population, and you're not a deranged serial killer. We hope you aren't anyways, because while chasing the criminals in a holier-than-thou fashion, you're gonna end up becoming one. What next? Put your own name in the Death Note? Finally, convince the law that you're all for justice. If you're gonna go down that road and you want to be remembered as a superhero and not some psychotic killer with a demonic book, you might want to, bring the law enforcement and the masses on your side. The task force in the public's view of Kira was questioned several times in the series, with many supporting him. While Matsuda was always aware that Kira's presence reduced crime rates and had a hard time seeing him as purely evil, the others thought it was important to arrest him at any cost. They even cooperated with him to bring down the mafia, and had several discussions over whether they were doing the right thing. It was during this time that Light had the perfect opportunity to tactfully get them on his side, as a good chunk of the population was already worshipping him as a sort of god. Had he used his time working with them as Kira to help convince them that he was righteous instead of showing off his powers, he'd have saved himself from the eternal void of nothingness that all Death Note owners were destined for. What would you do differently to beat the Death Note? Comment down below. Don't forget to give us the video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos. See you in the next one.